Hello. We just got to the second part of chapter 11, no 12, and they've opened this box and there's a big smell and oh my goodness, those scullions have woken up, and so Hiccup is saying run. The scullions were now so close behind them that they could hear the horrible snotty snuffling noises they were making in their noises and the clicking of their teeth. Hiccup reached the brow of the dunes and launched himself off it, went to a huge jump onto the sand below. He landed okay, but tripped over his too large stretcher point sword. He rolled over onto his back to look up at the ghastly sight of a gigantic, slobbering scullion, claws outstretched, leaping right on top of him. Its great head was just inches above Hiccup's face. It was the most dreadful thing that Hiccup had ever seen, and it would give him nightmares until he was an old man. It was a face that wasn't a face, really. No eyes and ears, just that vast nose and slobbering mouth, punctuated by sparkling silver teeth. Black saliva dripped down onto Hiccup's face in a disgusting dribble. The scullion was holding him down with one clawed paw while he sniffed down the rest of his body, searching for the tendon in his ankles, the sunlight glinting on that one ludicrously overgrown talon. Hiccup fumbled for his sword, but the stretcher point had fallen out of reach. Oh my goodness. Hiccup opened his mouth to shout for help, but no noise came out. Help me, he mouthed soundlessly. Help me. Somebody appeared from nowhere, grabbed the scullion around the throat and killed it with one blow from his sword. It was Stoic the Vast. Oh, I am Stoic to the rescue. The strange grip the treasure had on Stoic loosened as soon as he saw his son's life was in danger. He left Baggy round the Berry to carry the chest to the ship. He was holding the Stormblade in his right hand and an axe in his left. "Move!" yelled Stoic the Vast. Hiccup moved. He stumbled across the sand. He could hear more of the creatures bounding after him. "I'm not going to make it to the boats in time," he thought to himself. There was a hollow tree trunk sunk into the sand in front of him. "Climb under the climb under the tree," screeched Toothless. Toothless scrambled underneath it in the nick of time. He could hear a scullion's jaws clanging together, just as he pulled his ankle through the dip in the sand below the tree. The scullion was too large to follow him, but it pushed its revolting, quivering nose through the gap, and it started to gnaw at the wood around the hole. Hiccup grabbed a bone lying on the ground and shoved it as hard as he could up one gigantic nostril. The scullion fell back with a howl of anguish. There was a sickening crash from above as a scullion landed on top of the tree, and then another, and another, and then Hiccup could hear horrible scratchings as they worried away with their teeth, trying to break through the wood. And way above that, Toothless was screaming, "Help! Help! Help!" Hiccup swiped at another nose appearing around the hole, and all around him, at the edges of the tree trunk, he could hear the scrabbling sound of creatures digging through the sand. How scary. It was only a question of time before one of them broke through. Through a crack at eye level, Hiccup could see his father fighting away towards him up the beach. His dragon hadn't deserted him. Noble Newtsbreath was recklessly tearing into the back of a scullion 3 times larger than himself that was about to leap at Stoic. Crunch! A scullion talon pierced the tree trunk so close to Hiccup that it grazed his chest as it went through. The head and shoulders of the scullion appeared in the gaping hole the talon had made. It opened its jaws so wide Hiccup could see right down its black throat. Hiccup screamed and fell backwards. Just as the creature lunged forward to kill him, Hiccup was grabbed around the ankle by one of Stoic's hairy hands and pulled back through the hole he had climbed in. Stoic dragged him out and lifted him up. "Put your arms up!" bellowed Stoic. Newtsbreath, hovering overhead, took hold of Hiccup's arms with his talons and carried him up into the air. Toothless grabbed one leg, trying to help. Newtsbreath spread out his great wings to their fullest extent, and the scullions chased after them as they flew, leaping up to bite at Hiccup like dogs after a titbit. Newtsbreath groaned with the strain of trying to get enough height to keep Hiccup out of the range of their snapping jaws. Every now and then the effort became too much for him, and to Hiccup's terror he plunged suddenly downwards towards the beach. You see, that is Hiccup. He's being carried by Newtsbreath through the air, who's flying, and look at the scullions leaping up to try and get it. There was one very close call when Hiccup swung his body out of the way just in time as one of the monsters made a tremendous leap and nearly took his leg off at the knee. By the time they had got to the sea, Newt's breath's strength was gone, and Hiccup's ankles were dragging in the water, but they were safe. Scullions cannot swim, and they loathe the water. That's why they were stuck on the island, you see, because they loathe the water and they can't fly either. A few more beats of Newt's breath wins, and he dropped Hiccup sprawling on the deck of the Lucky 13. He then whirled round wearily and flapped to try and help his master. Stoic was doing surprisingly well without his help, considering he was fighting a lone battle against increasing numbers of scullions. Normally this would have resulted in one dead chief in about 10 seconds flat. You have to remember that Stoic was 40 and a little plump. But with the Stormblade in his hand, Stoic seemed to have transformed. He was awesome. Yelling the spine-chilling hooligan yell, eyes crazy with bloodlust, he performed the fighting against superior numbers manoeuvre with spectacular success. This is a highly complicated pirate fighting skill that only the most coordinated and brilliant fighters can carry out. The pirate takes the double-headed super axe in his left hand and whirls it round his head in a continuous circle that the enemies are unable to penetrate without getting their heads chopped off. And at the same time, with his right hand, the pirate lunges out of the defensive circle with his sword to attack the enemy. I'm not quite sure how you do that, but it's very complicated. As you can imagine, if you've ever tried to rub your stomach with one hand while patting your head with the other, I could never do that. This attacking while defending skill can only be carried out by the most brilliant and coordinated of Vikings. Scullion after scullion fell down dead around Stoic as he walked slowly forwards, but a continuous shining wave of the creatures had poured onto the beach and were cutting off his route to the boats. It seemed impossible that he could make it through the sheer mass of them all, and Newt's breath, though flying as hard as he could, was still too far away to be of any help. And then, to the complete astonishment of the watching hooligans, their corpulent, creaky old leader leapt onto the back of the nearest scullion. The creature madly twisted and bucked, trying to throw him off, but Stoic held on grimly, gripping with his powerful thighs alone so that he could reach down to the right and left, dispatching scullions with sword and axe. He cut his way through the mob, riding the maddened beast right into the sea, for all the world as if he were astride an ancient old broken-in dragon steed. When the creature finally bucked him off into the shallows, he turned the fall into a belly flop forwards, checked for a moment to stow away the sword and the axe, and swam like fury for the boat. Look at him. Wow, Stoic being a hero. The whole wide bay and the immediate horizon was now filled with thousands and thousands of these beasts. It was a vision out of your worst nightmare. But the scullions stopped at the water's edge and stayed there, howling and shrieking furiously. So angry were they that they started turning on the weaker members of their pack, and a few of the creatures were ripped to pieces in front of Hiccup's eyes. They are very, very vicious, these scullions. The hooligans cheered and cheered and cheered, and Stoic was very pleased with himself. He acknowledged the frantic applause, wiped the blood off the Stormblade on his shirt, and kissed the clean blade. And then he threw back his hairy head and roared. And so wild did he look with the sword in his hand and the blood on his shirt that Hiccup barely recognised his own father. Next chapter is called Chapter 13, The Argument. But we'll hear that tomorrow.